Well, hello everybody. It is Saturday, right? Saturday the
Yes.
11th, 111.
Yeah.
Now, if this was 11, people can have the prophetic. Some people do the numbers, and all that. I want to introduce you to Johnathan Tainter. He was the first guy I met at Bethel Church on a Sunday morning. He sat behind me. And so that was in 2015.
Yes,
It was the middle of the month of May. In 2015. You remember all that?
And it was right after I moved here. Yeah. I'd been here for a year myself.
Yeah, so he's here, and we've been goofing around and having some fun. But I wanted to introduce him to you because he is a tremendous a man with a heart. I was reading this morning in 1 Samuel where it says that God is looking for people with a heart for him, And Johnathan is one of those guys, and he's been doing some stuff with a group on TikTok. We're going to be working on some animal puff, little children's things for animals. We're going to do that later on. More about that a little bit later. But Johnathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you're going to college now. You're going for your master's degree?
Yeah.
What are you taking?
Public administration, Grand Canyon University.
Oh,
so I'm working. Yeah, and I'll be done in May.
Yeah, and you just finished Simpson University?
Yeah, that was a few years ago now, quite a few years ago. So back in 2022, I finished that. So I already had my bachelor's. So yeah, so
he already had his bachelor's, working on his master's degree. And you may have just mentioned it, but what's your master's degree in?
Public administration.
Public admin, okay.
Yeah, public admin, yeah.
Yeah, and you're also involved in politics, right?
Yes.
So you're going to be president one day?
I don't know. Like Trump says, that's the most dangerous job. So I'm like, yeah, I believe Donald Trump. I'm like, I'll leave it to him and
let those guys do it. He worked with Tanessa here in Redding, California. Actually, is it District 1?
Yeah, it was District 1, yeah.
Trying to get her elected. She's been the mayor of Redding, and a tremendous woman of faith, tremendous woman of God as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so why don't you just give us a little bit of your testimony, or a lot of it of your testimony? We're not under a time constraint, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Western Oregon, and actually I was adopted from China, and I actually grew up in a Christian home. So how I became a Christian was I was in a Sunday school class, and it was the pastor's daughter, one of the former pastor's daughters, his only daughter. And he pastored the church way back there, but I never met him. But I can't really remember how I came to the Lord. It just happened, and then I just came to know the Lord, and so that's kind of how I came to know the Lord. And I grew up as a Christian, so.
Okay, you already knew all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And I became a Christian, but I don't know how. It's kind of like Leslie Crandall brought up once. Like she's like, I've always known the Lord, so it's the same thing as her. I've always known the Lord.
Right. You kind of always did, and I know a lot of people. I was not one of those people. I had to. I grew up in a religious family. So would you say that you grew up religious, or did you have more of a real relationship?
I've had a real relationship with the Lord, but I grew up in the Assemblies of God. But the Assemblies of God isn't always charismatic. So there was a lot of religion. So I was around a lot of religious people.
Yeah.
And so, they were not all they were just, it was a lot of religion, and it felt more like a Baptist church than actual charismatic. Some of the people around it, but the pastor.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Baptists.
Yeah, and the pastor that we had, he believed in the charismatic, but they didn't. Some of the people, not the people that were the pastor, but more behind. Some of the people every day in the church were not into the heavy charismatics. So those were more like the Baptist people.
Right.
But they said they were Assemblies of God, but they only did tongues and interpretation. So there was no prophetic. So that's why I didn't even know if the prophetic was even that big.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago, people were not aware of the prophetic.
No, they actually, just over 30 years, we were walking, and I've always walked in the prophetic and just had, but people were really, really skeptical, and you had to make sure it was right on.
Yeah. No. That's always been that way.
Because you don't want to be a false prophet, because they'll kick you out of the church.
No, it's always been that way. It's always been that way. That it was being a prophetic, it was that way then. And then I wasn't aware of okay, is this is the prophetic actually a thing? But what was happening is that a lot of people were into the end times. It's a
Uh-huh.
sign of the times, because I grew up during the beginning, like when right after, before 9/11 happened, and then the war in Iraq and all that. So that
Right.
really drew on a lot of end time things, and people were living in fear because they were scared about, like, what if this is the end, and what if this is all,
Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina happened, all of this stuff. So that was my time growing up.
Wow. I grew up I was part of the last groups of people that were born again and from the Jesus Revolution.
Yeah, yeah,
And so we were all about the end times and Jesus is coming tomorrow. And so that was 50 years ago.
hmm
Jesus is coming tomorrow. So, wow.
yeah. No, and looking through the war in Iraq and all of that, that was
Yeah,
20 years ago now.
I know. Can you
So
believe
I
it?
know, I can't believe it. I remember every day I would read the Oregonian, and I still read it today. I've been reading that newspaper since I was a kid, and I read that every day because my
Wow.
dad would get that, so we read that. So I still read it every day, and now but now everything changed from 2003 up until 2008 was the war in Iraq, and then when Obama came on, all changed.
Hmm. Wow. That's so good.
Yeah.
So, why did you pick Simpson University over any university you could have gone to?
Yeah, so actually that was not on my plan at all. I ended up moving here, and my brother did school back in 08, 09. He had heard about Bethel, and he had lived in Sweden for 3 years because I have family in Sweden. So I go there, and my mom, she is from there, so we have a summer house there, so we go there. And my brother, he was wanting to live there and actually live, and do that. But he was there for 3 years, then he came back, and then one of the pastors now he is the pastor of the church that I came from, and he's like, hey, you should think about Bethel. But my brother's like, oh no, he had heard about it, and that's just like 06, 07, but we didn't even know anything about it. I didn't
Yeah.
even know Reading existed yet, and so we were deciding to go. He decided to come, and there was 08, and it was the spring of 08. So that's when, like, right when Bethel really took off.
Hmm.
And he was like, he was in the 08, 09, and I was like the class that Bob Jones had prophesied. So that was all of these different things that had been, prophesied into. And that was like the really big class. Like they had 800 people at that time.
Yeah.
They had 800 people, and they were in the College View campus in the sanctuary, like Sunday morning. That's what it looked like. And so he decided to go, and he was fishing. He's like, okay, Lord, what do I want to do? Kind of like his fleece. He's like, if you let me catch this big fish or something, and he did, and he ended up going, and then he ended up coming, and then the rest of it kind of fell into line. And then my sister came too, and then we decided to come in. They were doing stuff like the Scandinavians here in Reading because they were coming in and they had started all that stuff not that long. Like it was right there. It was all it all started, and so we had a chance to, and then all of that. He'd always bring people for Thanksgiving, and so
Right.
we decided why not, to move. But like I wasn't planning on living here this long
Hmm.
either. At first, it was hard to live here, and it can be hard to live here
Yeah.
and all of that, not understanding. Like it took me quite a few years to understand. Like now I'm understanding, differences between just, going to church every day and actually doing outreaches here in Reading
Hmm.
and doing the stuff that Chris Overstreet did with us. But now that he is, Chris is gone, and then it went to Nathan Muller, and now Nathan Muller he's doing something totally different. But we're doing this, me and the outreach department, we're doing stuff. Working with my friend Kelly Mar, we're doing stuff that Chris Overstreet did, and there's a bunch of other people that are involved, and we're doing. It's not just about. And we've shifted from the era of the outreach department just being one guy to now it's multiple people.
Right. So
Yeah.
now you're working with the outreach. So what else do you do at Bethel? I mean, like I know.
I volunteer at conferences. I've been doing that since
Hmm.
2017. I kind of got involved with that, and I said, why not? And so meeting all these different people and meeting and hearing and
Hmm.
finding out what's been going on, just meeting different people, and it's cool to see people that come because they really want to seek the Lord. But there's also been a change in visitors too, because people used to come all the time, but now I've noticed that this is happening not just here in Redmond, but it's all over the place. So
Yeah.
there are churches that have picked up this, and they're not necessarily copying Bethel or anything. They just picked this up and they've started doing conferences themselves. So now people are going to those churches instead of coming here. So now Bethel's has this whole new stream of like new people coming to visit.
Right. Right. Well, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that.
No.
I think it's awesome. The more, the merrier. Um, so you're working with what do you do in the outreach department? So I want to go after that for a second.
Yeah, the outreach department, we go on Friday nights. We do Friday night strikes.
What are those?
So Friday night strikes, it's like going around the city evangelizing.
Mhm.
It's a mix of Adopt a Block. You were part of Adopt a Block for a while, and I remember that you and Fiona, we had a lot of fun. And Adopt a Block, it's a mix of that. And so they have some neighborhoods. We've got the Target, Winco, and we just go around and we just meet with, just see what's going on. And now we're really wanting to bring all that back because COVID kind of shut things down. And so now they want to bring everything back. And here we are, like, here I am 8 years later, now it's all finally coming back. And I was part of the SSM for quite a few years, or even after I was in school doing stuff with them. But then I shifted, like I felt like it was time to give that up, until I shifted to the outreach department to do more outreach stuff.
Do you guys still do treasure hunts on Friday Night Strikes, or is it just kind of go out witnessing?
Just going out witnessing, and then there's certain neighborhoods they do block parties still. They're going to do block parties on January 24th.
Come on.
And so we're going to, after Randy Clark, we're going to have a block party. And so they really want to do that. And you were part of it.
Yeah, we did.
And that's why we want to have these.
Yeah, I remember we had that one guy in the scooter. He couldn't walk.
Oh yeah.
And he had been in a wheelchair for 10 years. Hadn't walked in those 10 years, and then God healed him. And I posted that video on Facebook. You can see that if you go to my profile. But and then on Sunday mornings you're doing something.
It's called Fresh Start. It's a new believer course, and so we go to church with the new believers, and that's also a student activation. And we have a girl from Canada she's a new believer, and she ended up getting that one. She said it was so cool that she got that one because she's a new believer. And you don't have to be a new believer. People come in, they can come hang out with us.
Is her name Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know Sarah.
Yeah, and so she got shout out to Sarah. But so I met her back at
Sarah.
I met her at the beginning of the school year. She had gotten saved back in August, and so she said this class was so right for her. And we have other students in there, and you don't have to be a new believer to be there.
No,
it's a class. It's about connecting. And I know, and Bethel's gotten better at talking about community and about getting connected. Bethel was always healthy, but on the community aspect, they've really gotten good.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot better with that. And then you're also doing baptisms?
Yeah, I do baptisms on. So I think that's coming up on the 19th, I think. So we're getting ready to do that. So it's a lot of fun.
Poor Randy Clark, that's next Sunday. We got Randy Clark coming to Bethel this week and for a healing conference. And then right after that we have the baptism.
I think so, yeah.
And then so we got because that's next Sunday actually.
Yeah.
So that's been really, really amazing. I just been just watching, and as you and I have a bunch of friends that work in that, in the baptisms and stuff.
Ken Lindbergh and
Ken and Ann Connors is up in there. Jory Henderson is in there.
Yeah.
And it's a real powerful thing. And one of the things is my heart's desire, and I'm not necessarily an evangelist as you think of an evangelist.
Yeah, same here.
But I want to see people born again. And I'm so grateful that the preachers, Bill and Chris and Bethel has really made an effort to not just speak to the believers, but to speak to unbelievers and to bring them into the kingdom. And there's always that that follow-up stuff. So and you're involved in all of that. So that's really cool. You've been on the ministry team?
Yeah, I've been on the ministry team.
How long?
I think the last 6 years now.
6 years.
Yeah. So I've done it all. But the baptisms is one of my favorite because we actually get to see them in the class. Kelly Marr does a great job. Ken is always there. And we're putting this together and we're making that. And we have different people do it. Tom does it and Angela. We have fun. But Kelly Marr and I, we always love it when our friend Samantha Rouse does it. Yeah. Now Samantha Holiday, her and her husband Gabe, when they do, we love it.
Yeah, Samantha's really, really in a good way. She's a Cossack for Jesus. She just goes after us.
Yeah, I'm bringing the people in and saying, hey, it's time. And when she teaches the class, it's really powerful. I always tell people because she teaches it, but if they miss, I always tell them, remember who you get baptized with. That's a philosophy she has. Remember who you get baptized with.
Yeah.
She remembered every single person she got baptized with, but remember who you get baptized with. That's what they always, it's important.
Yeah.
That's why I have a lot of fun with the baptism.
Hey, I remember who I got baptized with. One of my friends.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really kind of cool. So you have, you've gone through all of this. Can you believe it's been 5 years already?
Yeah.
Since COVID.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe that.
And it's just like,
wow. And we've already gone through a whole term of president, and now we're going to have another president.
We're going to have another president now who was the same president from years ago. But it's a really crazy thing when you think about it, how we have come for so long. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I was supposed to go to France.
You were telling me that
for a month.
Yeah.
And so I was going to end up in. They were going to smuggle me into Iran to an underground church there.
Yeah.
I was going to go to Iraq and then Israel and then Wales.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool. So now that you're in this thing, you've become kind of a TikTok star, have you?
A little bit, yeah. We did stuff with TikTok, and they were doing something funny today. They were doing like The Bachelor, Hannah on it, and we had April there. We had a girl named Yesenia, and there was a girl named Rebecca.
Yeah.
That was there. We were laughing. They were doing. We had Patrick Smith with us, and they were doing The Bachelor. But at first, I had done, and Alex Parker had shown up. He worked with Teresa Dedman, and we had done this talk with my. I have this bunny that I got a number of years ago when I was a kid, and we call him Big Jim. And so they're going to call it Moments with Big Jim. And so Big Jim is just asking questions like, hey, did you go see Wicked? And they're like, no, because you asked. Just all these funny things. They're like, are you going to the inauguration of Donald Trump? I don't know. And then, hey, did you hear about Elon Musk? I haven't seen that. Yeah, because you're asking. And so it's just a funny thing,
Yeah, what is that? Something called... what is there? How can you find them on TikTok? It's like
it's called Creators Co.
Creators, okay.
Creators Co. Creators Company or Creators Co.
Yeah, Creators Co. And then you can find them on TikTok. Jonathan's been on there a couple of times. So what next now that everything's starting to bust out again? What is your vision? What is your hopes?
Yeah, my vision is as I'm actually thinking of, and then maybe I'm actually starting to get connected with this church in Ashland, Oregon, and I'm actually thinking of maybe potentially wanting to move there. I need to find a job. I'm still job hunting because it's typical college life. You kind of flow, and college life it could be kind of boring. You just float around. And I talked to one guy, my friend Ben Nelson. He's like, I'm just kind of floating. He's like, yeah, I did it too. He's just telling me, he's like, yeah, I did it too. It's totally normal right now what you're doing.
I know.
And so right now I'm connected with this church, and I wanted to live in that town before, but I forgot about that. Actually, my grandfather's buried there. My parents got married in Ashland at the Foursquare, which actually we found out the Foursquare shut down, and so they've joined this other church, and so they got married there, and then my grandfather's buried in that town. Wow. And so and it was a Scandinavian restaurant that they had, but then that shut down, and then my parents lived there, but then they moved on. But I wanted to live there, 8 years ago, but I'm glad I did because it got all new agey and just all this weird stuff. And you've been there, and tons of people have been there, but it just got kind of weird. And so I felt like this was, so I did, and so I'm glad I did not go there. But now I was back there in June after the Australia trip had gone. After they'd gone to Australia, I was there, and I'm walking around, and and I'd heard about this church, and I actually met two people on the 9th and the 16th of June that were from this church, and they're like, yeah, well, there's a church called The Story, and I had met somebody else, and then I started looking in, and I was like, this is interesting, and I walked around, and I found it, and I'm like, okay, this is getting interesting, so I wanted to see this, and I walked around. That was one of my summer trips. I walked around, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I thought in my head, what if I live here for a season? I don't know yet, but I have stuff to do more networking. And then I met somebody else back in December, on the 22nd, we had met some people, and that was the same thing. And it's the pastor's brother of that church. So we had met, and then I found out my friend Christopher Sims, he was in Hawaii. His friend is friends with the pastor. His friend's from Oregon. His friend is friends with that pastor. They know each other. So that's how it all kind of got going. I'm like, wow. And Bethel's not a place where you're meant to stay. And so that's why I kind of want to see how much I've grown, and I want to see. And there's a lot of things changing, and God is waking the people up in Southern Oregon. Yeah, that's why that's kind of I think that's my next vision. I love Bethel and everything, but a lot's changing.
What do you want to do up in Ashland though, other than just go to the church?
Maybe do outreaches with the people and
just get them lead outreaches. And
maybe do lead outreaches and get to see the people, and even in Medford, because I don't know, they do some, but I don't know how much they do.
Right.
It's not like here in Reading where it's all, and then Portland, and you see all these big mega churches. I don't think it's. And so it'd be interesting to do outreach and get them to.
Yeah, because I know Ashland, I would drive through there. I would always stop at the Arco station right off I-5 and in Ashland and get gas because the gas was always less expensive at that one.
Yeah.
But so you're going to do outreaches. You're going to do.
I would like to.
Because Bethel is more of an apostolic ministry.
Yeah.
And when Eric and Candace were here, they were trying to get into the local.
That's exactly, and that's how I really got into stuff with them. Yeah, and I worked alongside them.
And so that was really good. I love Pastor Bill. I love Pastor Chris. They're just tremendous people. I almost sounded like Trump. They're just tremendous people. I got to tell you, of all the people in the entire universe, they are some of them. And they have a tremendous heart. To just not only train. And Chris Valentin says this a lot. He talks about equipping the saints
Mhm.
for every good work,
Yeah.
and they want you to walk in what you're supposed to be doing
Mhm.
and what you were created for. I had a thing this morning. Was it this? No, yesterday. Yesterday morning, I was laying before the Lord,
Yeah.
and in the prayer time, we were having a fasting and prayer for
Yeah.
these, and the Lord spoke to me, and he actually this was what's today, Saturday? It was
Yes.
Thursday
Yeah,
morning.
today's Saturday. Yeah.
He smacked me upside the back of the head. That's kind of how you get my attention.
Uh-huh.
And he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Not walking in who I created you to be,
Mhm.
not walking um, in what I called you to, is to hold me in contempt."
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. So I just didn't want to hold God into contempt,
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'm going to move that light back there. There you go. And
Mhm.
and then so I didn't want to hold God in contempt because He didn't create you and He didn't create me. He didn't
Yeah.
create you haphazardly.
Mhm.
He had a definite purpose. He had a
Yeah.
definite desire of something that He had wanted to accomplish
Yeah.
in this world through you. Now you are His bride. You are His son. Not gender specific.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like, so what God wants is for us to walk in what we're supposed to walk in. So
Mhm.
that's what Bill and Chris's and
Mhm.
Dan Fairley's desire has always been, that I
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So when did you do BSSM?
So I did it back in 17, 18, but a lot of people, I went to college and university before that. So a lot of people thought I did it back in like 2014, 15 when I got here, because that's when most people do it. So a lot of people thought I was in school back then. So that was like Richard Gordon and
Yeah, wow.
so I knew, and the Gerbers, I knew
Mhm.
all those people. And of course, Samantha Rouse, now Samantha Holiday, all of them, Hannah B. We all knew each other from that time period.
Yeah.
And then there was a few others that came in kind of after us, but we knew all these people. And so like, it was just, it's Hannah Muller. It was Hannah Tilly then, but now it was Muller. But we
Yeah.
all knew each other, and so that was just kind of like that whole group. So some of us are still around, but
Mhm.
like some people have left. A girl named Lucy,
Mhm.
and just all these people, and Rebecca was there, Rebecca Cooper, but we knew these people, and so it was just kind of like everybody kind of ran together.
What was the biggest thing you got out of BSSM?
I would say how to do an outreach and actually how to do outreaches. It's not about just going to church and sitting there
Right.
and having a powerful song sung by
Right.
Tasha Cobbs, and then you go home and it's like, what am I doing next?
Yeah.
No. Like, it was actually about doing an outreach. Like, this is actually, that's not about like, oh, we're not just sitting here waiting for Jesus to return. Because I had a lot of the wrong ideas. I'm like, no, we're not supposed to sit and wait for Jesus to return and all of that. And
No. We're definitely not supposed to do that.
no, and so that was almost 8 years ago now that I did school. Well, it will be 8 years ago this next year. So it's already been 8. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's great.
Yeah, BSSM is really strong. I'm kind of glad we moved back into the sanctuary this year.
Yes, after 12 years.
And there's just an intimacy in the sanctuary
there is.
that really blows my mind. I'm just like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, no, I can feel that too, because when they had the Civic, the reason why they had to move from Bethel to the Civic is because the Civic was doing so poor that they were almost losing it. And Chris Valton's like, hey, could we help you guys out? Like, we need an extra space for extra 700 people to come.
Mhm.
And so they did, because they kept having to turn people away. They were at 800, so they kept having to turn people away.
Mhm.
So do you think we could have like a space for another 700? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then ended up helping rent out stuff. And then it got the Civic's name out there, where before it was just not, so that's why they did it. But then it was wonderful having like over 2,000, close to 2,000 people, but it was so big though. Like, it was so big. So everybody now is fortunate that it's small. Even I'm fortunate that it's small, because it feels like I actually know everybody.
Yeah. And now the Civic here in Reading now has like Tim Allen, Amy Grant, Tim Hawkins will come. We had Lauren Daigle last year, a couple of years ago. Last year, I can't remember. And
they've had several well-known comedians come in.
Yeah, and they've had some really, really. So it's been building up. And one of the things about Bethel Church is that we have a desire for the community, to build up the community, and not just to let it be a, not just it's us and nobody else, kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's what we had wanted to do, and I believe that's for every city that we go to. I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
You go to every city, and the thing is, you want to make an impact. You don't want to just let it go. So The next few moments are yours.
Yeah.
I want you just to share anything that you want to share.
Yeah.
You got the.
Yeah.
I'm shutting up.
Yeah, okay. Well, doing outreach, I just want to talk about outreach because it's so important because I didn't know how to do it. And so when you do an outreach with church groups, it's like going and praying in a poor neighborhood or whatever neighborhood you're in, walk around and pray. Do prayer walks and you start seeing changes happen. Things happen that we never thought we would actually see before. Like we saw crime go down. We saw, that's like for anybody who's watching this that wants to do this, this is the key to doing outreaches. And that's not about just sitting and, your church listening to some powerful song and someone met Donald Trump. No, that's not how that goes. You have to go do this. And you have to go and like doing conferences, inviting people in. That's how you get your name out there. That's how you do outreaches. That's really one of the things of like doing outreaches. That's how you get a church to grow on Sundays. Like people go, why is my church so small? Why is it so small? No. You need to do these outreaches to get these people to come.
Where do you do outreaches at?
So we do outreaches down by the lake building over in that area.
Okay, so I'm just talking like in general, like the average person watching, who's thinking about it. Where would you start? On an outreach?
And an outreach, you could start in like a neighborhood like Bethel. We've targeted like lower income neighborhoods. Start in like a lower income neighborhood, or even just in your own neighborhood, you could start doing something, or a neighborhood that you feel just down the road from you. That's where you could start actually doing outreaches. And some of these neighborhoods were actually really nice, are helping the elderly out. That's how you start this. That's how these outreaches get started.
Yeah, so an outreach is not basically pounding somebody on the head with a Bible, preaching on a street corner. You can do that. One of the things I used to do, I would go to a little apartments. This is during the time that we did the Friday or Saturday morning thing, and was it Saturday after? I can't remember, but anyway, what we would end up doing is going to hotel rooms, motel, apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And I would knock on the door and I would just say, "Hey, I'm a Christian. Is there anything I can pray for you about?"
Yeah.
And then you pray for them, you love on them, and then you share the gospel with them. And basically, there's no agenda. In fact, I had some friends. We called ourselves a little group, but we called them No Agenda. We just did stuff. I mean, we would go to Applebee's and share the gospel with the waitress.
Yeah.
There were times when we gave money to them because the Lord said, "Okay, give them X amount of dollars in your pocket." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." So we gave it to them, and it turned out to be their rent that they needed for that day.
Wow.
Little things of outreach, because one thing is that you're connecting their hand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're connecting their hand with the hand of the Lord, and you're just kind of bringing a connection there.
Yeah, and also right now we're getting ready to do block parties. And when you do a block party, that's getting all of these people to come and say, "Hey, we want you here.
Yeah.
We want you to come." And so basically doing block party, barbecue, food, socializing, people will come. People come, and also doing a home Bible study in your neighborhood. That could also help bring the people together and bring everyone, and like doing the outreach, we could actually see some real changes and actually bring them together.
Yeah.
That's what an outreach is about.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys can do it too. Don't hesitate to share the gospel with somebody, the good news of who Jesus is. And whatever things that you do, you just go ahead and you share with them, and you don't preach to them, just share the love of God. I mean, if you ever needed a model to, and I'm not talking about a person showing off clothes, talking about if you ever need a model on how to live, go to the Gospels and see how Jesus did it. How did he witness to people? I was talking the other day about Zacchaeus.
Yeah, Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus didn't have, Jesus never preached the gospel to him.
No,
he never shared anything with him. All he said to Zacchaeus was, "I'm going to go to your house and have dinner with you." That's all he said. And he goes, "Oh, if I defrauded it, and then if I defrauded anybody, I'm going to pay him back 4 times as much. And if I cheated anybody, I'm going to give him back." And then Jesus said something really cool. He said, "Today salvation has come to this house."
Yes, exactly.
And you can have that. And if you don't know Jesus today, and you're watching this, you stumbled on it. You're just like, what are 2 funny-looking guys doing on here with the little Hawaiian lei on there and the gold piece of cloth? What are you guys doing? Want to tell you that you can have Jesus in your life, not just as first place, not just as an addendum to your life, but you can make Jesus your Lord. And he says that anyone, you must confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And that's really all it boils down to. You can give your life to Jesus. And we urge you with that. Any last words?
Well, I want to give a plug for Simpson University.
Do it,
because, Simpson, if you're interested, if you know of anybody who's wanting a Christian college to come to, if you're living in Southern Oregon or Northern California, Simpson's a great place to come. I went there, my life was transformed. It actually has really changed. The school itself almost shut down back in 2018. I don't know if you were aware of that. Yeah, and what was happening is that it's just, people actually thought Bethel was going to buy them out, because it was just, it was a bunch of empty buildings, or was going to be a bunch of empty buildings. And the previous president there, he was just not the perfect leader. Like, he wanted to be, but it was just not working out. And so they ended up basically saying shut the doors, because it was so, like, the money, they only had money just to open for 2 days. And the current president that we have now, he came all the way from Illinois. He wasn't sure, do I really want to come? Do I really, and he went through this whole seasonal of, like, do I really want to do this? And the Lord, spoke to him and said, yes. So they drove all the way out here. Him and his wife drove all the way out here just to be here. And and their kids, and they literally helped save the school. That was like on the brink of, like, they were in the red. Like, it was really bad. They were in the red, and like they ended up getting the money. They had to have somebody in San Francisco look at everything because it was so bad. And like they only had money to stay open for 2 days, and it sat empty for like about a month there. And then finally they got the school to, like, actually come out. It's what they call a turnaround school, because there's 72 Christian institutions in America that I've heard of, ones that have shut down, and those are some of the schools that have actually shut down. And Simpson would have been 73 if they weren't careful. It would have been one of the because there's quite a few Christian institutions that have shut down because of lack of money, lack of funds. And it was a Christian university. You run on money like a church, and so you have to ask for money. So all the people that give it out of their hearts, they give this money to the school for the funding. And you look at some of these really big schools like George Fox, they have all this money, and like Warner Pacific, and they, people are just, Biola and Azusa and Grand Canyon. You look at that and it's like, wow, Liberty, they have this money that they run off, and people go and they say, hey, would you consider giving to us? Would you consider? And they're like, yes. We consider giving to you, and 100%. And so what happened was Dr. Hall had to go travel again, get people to give money, and people had stopped giving money because they weren't responding, and the whole thing had shut down. It was shutting down. But he was able to get the thing saved, and now we have football, pro bass fishing. We have, it's a turnaround school. And so if you know of anybody who's interested in going to a Christian college, that's the place to go. That's the place you want to be, because they have nursing. We're #1 nursing program in the state, in nursing program in the state, and we have political science, all psychology, communications, all of this stuff. We have fantastic chapels, great community. That's where I actually found the community a number of years ago, and now I'm friends with a lot of these different people. So it ended up becoming this community of people that we could actually do life with, and here we are now. It's been 7 years since all of that happened, almost 8 years. And so it's like, wow. And it celebrated its 100th year back in 2021, 22. It celebrated that. And so it was just so exciting to celebrate 100 years with them a few years back. And here we are almost 4 years later. So it's just the 105th year. Yeah, they're going into the 105th year. So it's like, or the 104th year. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So God really was good to Simpson, and it really made Simpson become the place that it was meant to be, and actually people could actually enjoy, life, and actually come to chapels. And the chapels are just phenomenal, and you get to actually meet with staff and faculty, and all of that. So that's why I would encourage anybody on here who's looking to do an outreach, and who's looking to go to a really good school. That's what I'd look for.
How would they get in touch with somebody from Simpson? Do you know?
Well, you can also go to like the website.
Yeah,
I think you can go to the website and you can fill out either an email, or you can find out kind of like how to get in touch with them, or call them even if you're interested.
Yeah.
And like, we're trying to keep local people here, if anybody wants to come in and here, and even also do BSSM. Those are really good plugs for our school, and get everybody to do BSSM. All of that. And this guy went to first year too. How's first year been?
First year has been amazing. I had last semester, it's kind of like I felt like I was treading just trudging through mud, and
Yeah.
God was
That's
bringing,
usually the way it feels.
yeah, God was bringing stuff up, and I was like, I don't know. But then, and then I just felt like there was a shift when
Hmm.
we started school again, more into it was more, let's go for it, and that was a big deal. So thank God for Google. I didn't grow up with Google. I grew up with a telephone line that had the 100-foot
Yeah, 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 yeah.
curly
Yeah.
curly cord. So you can Google or do an engine search on Simpson University.
Yes.
Go to contact us, and I'm sure that they'll be glad to send you information about the school,
Yeah.
and even um, see if you can apply for FAFSA,
Yeah.
and try to get some grants and stuff like that in there. So yeah, so Simpson University here in Redding, California.
Yes. Please.
Just go and check it out. Do they do online?
I don't know. I think they're starting to.
They're starting to, yeah.
They're starting to, because the site wasn't very good, but they re-updated the site, so it looks more like a George Fox University or
More
like,
professional.
yeah, it
Yeah.
looks more in Bethel. So it looks more like, it
Yeah.
looks 100%. And when you talk about the curly phone, they said at Jimmy Carter's funeral, hats off to him. They said to Jimmy Carter's funeral, his grandson Jason was like, yes, they had their phone. And their phone was like a museum, and it was like the phone that had the curly phone at their house.
You know, I actually saw a payphone at the train station here in Reading.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, they have like 3 or 4 of them. I'm like, man, there's a blast from the past.
Yeah, those
you
are
know?
old payphones, and like I see the old black ones that they would have in Congress. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is so. But now everybody uses iPhones. They don't even use
No,
regular phone. Like,
they don't use the landlines anymore unless it's supposed to be private, and even then it's tapped. So
yeah, I know that's
Anyway.
why. No, it just makes it funny.
well, awesome. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Jonathan, for
Yeah.
for coming today. We just want to bless you.
Yes.
And thank you guys
Yes.
for
Thank you.
watching.
Yes,
And just want to
everybody.
so if you want more information, go to tomandsarah@outlook.com, tomandsarah@gmail.com, and we'll get some information to you. Actually, it's Tom and Sarah Ministries at gmail.com, all one word, at gmail.com. Tom and Sarah Ministries or Tom and Sarah at outlook.com if you want to get, and we'll get you some more information. All right. Well, Jonathan,
Yes,
thank you so much, bro.
Bless
Come on.
you.
Woo, man, we made
Bless
it.
you. Love
See you guys later.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Bye.
Have a great night.